are out of the office. So I will be recording the meeting and uploading it this evening or today, okay? But thank you, Kathy, for the reminder. So I am going to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the first inaugural meeting of the Climate Change Action Committee. Welcome, everyone. I'm just pulling everything up here. So a couple of quick things before we get started. I know that we're all kind of getting used to our new virtual reality. We at the township have been using Teams to facilitate all of our electronic meetings. This platform is fairly similar to Zoom. I simply ask that you keep your video enabled. Oops, sorry. So, thank you. I simply ask that you keep your video enabled so that the chair can see you raising your hand to speak, as well as see all of your votes. When you are not speaking, I do ask that you keep yourself muted, just to cut down on background noise. Do we have any questions about Teams before we move forward? Okay, I don't see any. When you would like to make a comment, I also ask that you raise your physical hand, like so, as well as your virtual hand. So at the top of your screen, you will see a few icons. Depending on if you're using an iPad or a computer or a laptop, you will see a people feature, a chat feature, as well as a hand feature. To raise your virtual hand, simply select the hand icon, and that will notify both the chair and myself that you would like to make a comment. Any questions about that?
I'm just going to try it right now.
Okay.
Did it work?
It did. So now I can see that you would like to make a comment.
Okay.
Virtual reality, it's fun.
Yeah, oh, I see it now. Yeah, okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
No problem. So without further ado, I will open the floor for nominations of both chair and vice chair. Do I see any nominations? Sue?
I would nominate Kathy Coburn to be chair of the committee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And Member Luke?
And I would like to nominate Anne as the vice chair.
So we have a nomination for Councillor Coburn as chair and Anne Schneider as vice chair. Do I have a mover to place that on the floor? Sue, thank you. And a seconder? Danuta, I see your hand raised. Thank you very much. So that motion will read that Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn be appointed chair of the Climate Action Change Committee for the remainder of the council term, and that member Anne Schneider be appointed vice chair of the Climate Change Action Committee for the remainder of the council term. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, I don't see any. All in favor? And any opposed?
Excuse me.
Thank you, and that is carried. Okay, Chair Coburn, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Brittany. Thanks, everyone. So I'm looking forward to working with everyone, and I think that hopefully our meetings will be able to be fairly informal, though with the virtual forum, as Brittany says, there has to be some formalities, and she'll be covering those a little later in the agenda, but also raising hands so that we're not talking over each other. I think that's important with this kind of a forum. So the third item on the agenda is approving the agenda. And if there are any changes or additions to the agenda, we would look at those now. And do we need, Brittany, do we need a seconder, a first, no. Do we need a, what's the word I'm looking for?
You do need a mover and a
A
second.
motion. We need a motion, yes, to approve the agenda. Okay. So, is there anyone who who would like to approve the agenda as it stands? Sue, thank you. And we need a seconder, you said, Brittany, for that? Anne? And is there any discussion about the agenda before we vote on that? Are there any additions that anyone would like to see? The only small addition that I would like to recommend is that we take some time, probably after this agenda item, just to introduce ourselves. I wonder if we want to refer to the profile assessment that was given to us in that, so just so that we can get to know each other a little bit better before we move too far into the agenda. So everyone's okay with the agenda with that one addition? Can we just indicate by a show of hands then? Okay, so that motion with that one addition is approved. So with all of our formal meetings, and this is an official committee of council, we need to remind everybody that a part of every meeting is declaring any pecuniary interest. So any interest that you have pertaining to the agenda items that might create a conflict of interest, particularly where financial matters are concerned. So at this point, is there any declarations of pecuniary interest? No? Okay. So we can move on then with the introduction of members, and I will let you guys take whatever format you wish for that. Maybe just keep it to a brief minute or so and cover what your background is, why you're here, where you fall on the SASE rating if you managed to do that assessment before coming today. And why don't we, I'm just going to start at the top of my screen, top left corner. If it's okay with you, Anne, can we start with you?
Anne, you are muted.
All right, Anne Schneider. I've lived in Georgian Bluff since 1975, been a taxpayer for 2 years prior to that. I'm a retired social worker. I did clinical work, supervision, and management in children's mental health and violence against women's services. Also ran a small home-based business making furniture, garden structures, and woven goods. I've been active in the community with the Physician Retention and Recruitment Committee in South Bruce Peninsula, involved with Artists Around the Sound, peace work, Bruce Peninsula Hospice, pet therapy, and settlement services, etc. And I really strongly believe in citizen engagement results in healthier communities. And that's part of why I'm here. In terms of the survey, I am rated as alarmed in terms of climate change. But what I'm going to say about that is that given my age, I may not be as significantly impacted by climate change, but I'm really worried about my grandchildren and their children, and I really like the concept of thinking in 7 generations to come. And that's something that I would like us to be thinking about. In terms of the focus of this committee, I think that as a group, we need to come to a good shared understanding of the implications of climate change so that we can work towards realistic and positive outcomes, focusing on both adaptation and mitigation. And I think this involves both learning about the science, but also learning from other municipalities in terms of what they have done. And I think in addition to focusing on the education of our committee members, we need to focus on the education of our council members, the staff of Jordan Bluffs, as well as community members, because without that shared understanding, I think it'll be really tough to move a plan forward. What do we hope to accomplish? I'm going to be short with that we will have a community and council endorsed climate action plan that includes real steps, time targets that can be measured. Thanks.
Thanks, Anne. Brittany, you're up next.
Oh, thank you. So good morning, everybody. I am Township Clerk. My name is Brittany Drury. I have been with the township for going on about 5 years now. I used to live in Brampton. Now I live in Collingwood. My first winter here was an interesting one, but now I'm getting acclimatized to it. I'm very excited to see this committee come to Georgian Bluffs. I think you guys will do great things, and staff are here to support you along the way.
Thanks, Brittany. And Deputy Mayor Carlton?
Good morning, everyone. I'm, as you know, Deputy Mayor. This is my second term on council. I have a long history sort of personally doing things as far as how I grow my own food and that type of thing, how we live in our own home and try to keep things in a way that is better for the climate, for our environment. So part of my interest is in seeing how we can move things forward for the townships to ensure that our footprint here at a township is not quite so heavy as it's once been. I know staff have made some steps in that direction over the years. I think there's a lot more that we can do. And so that's mainly my focus. I'm like Anne, a little older, and I don't think my footprint is quite so heavy as others. I did the survey and it seems to me it came back and said 31%. So I'm not sure exactly what that meant. So that's where I'm at, and welcome everybody to the committee. Thanks for being willing to do this.
Thanks, Sue. And John?
Unmute. Well, I filled out the profile, so I thought I must just read from that and save you having to read from it. I moved to the Owen Sound area in 2009 and last year became a resident of Georgian Bluffs. So I'm 1 year in this township. My background, I'm a retired scientist. I'm a lot of knowledge in biophysical systems and climate change. I co-produced the climate change film Resilience, Transforming Our Community. I'm scientific advisor to a number of citizen groups and councils, including the Grey County Climate Action Plan that we're working on, the Niagara Adapts program, which is a program of 7 municipalities working with Brock University. I'm a member of the Georgian Bluffs Climate Action Team and the Climate Action Team Grey Bruce, which is the Owen Sound-based one. And I guess also the group now that we call I call it the Multicat. It's a group of 6 regional climate action teams now working with Grey County. So that kind of is my Grey County involvement. And now this committee of Georgian Bluffs, this climate change action committee. I did the SASE survey, and of course I come out alarmed. I'm way down at that end of the spectrum, and always have been. My primary committee focus, I think, is really going to be on educating. That's where my strength is, educating people on the importance and process of planning through a climate lens. All our planning should go through this lens, and communities that have gone down that route already, it makes fundamental shifts in their planning for the long term, infrastructure planning and things like that. But also, as Anne was saying, educating people on the importance of climate change concerns, especially focusing on our area. That's one of the things that has really resonated in the film are the local stories and the local impacts that are here right now. What do I hope we can accomplish on this committee? Well, I wrote down, develop a long-term cross-council vision for a safe, healthy, and sustainable community that is resilient to climate impacts and disturbances. So I take the long view. I look down the road and you know, as my age would indicate, most of my carbon footprint is behind me now. But I have children and I have grandchildren, and I'm very much think of their future as part of this. That's it.
Thank you, John. And Jen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jen Burnett. I'm a senior planner at the township. I've been with the township for 10 years. And just in terms of this committee, I'm really interested in making climate change more tangible. So, because I really feel that we need to be able to implement change. And in order to do that, we need to have our documents written so that we can require developers, new development and redevelopment to adhere to practices or to use materials that would support climate change. So, John, I might be having a discussion with you, just to get a better understanding of the long-term impacts that you've seen. So I would appreciate, not that I'm excluding anyone else, but I think I might find a lot of value in having a conversation with you.
Thank you. I see Krista is Krista here with us? Would Krista like to introduce herself? We can't see you, Krista.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just using my monitor, so I don't have a camera on that. My name is Krista, and I work in the clerks department with Brittany, and I'm here in a minute-taking capacity to assist Brittany, so that way we have all of our motions and everything in order and recorded.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that. And Cassie Rocca.
Hi everyone, sorry I was late. I had an urgent matter to take care of at the office, but I'm here now. So I am representing the township on this committee in the CIO capacity. So I think this committee is really important because we're seeing more and more issues, you know, with our roads that are close to the shoreline, and I'm very curious or interested, I guess, in seeing what we can do to help do some work to protect those areas. Yeah, I've been at the township 6 years now. Normally my role is treasury, so once I'm back to director of finance, I probably won't be overly involved in this committee, but I will be watching what you guys are doing and eager to hear the recommendations that you make.
Thanks, Cassie. And Bob.
Okay, well, I'll just have a look at my profile here and read off of that, if that's okay. Residency, I've been in the township of Georgian Bluffs, former Derby Township from 1977 to 1980. And then in 1980, I moved to Keppel Township, where we live up near Kemble, and I've been there ever since. My background is a honors BSc from the University of Toronto in biology and physical geography. And then I did a Bachelor of Education at U of T, Science and Geography Type A, so that's high school. I'm a retired ecologist. I worked for the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources out of Owen Sound that covered Grey and Bruce counties for most of my career. I'm co-owner and operator of Kemble Mountain Maple Products, former research chair 10 years of Ontario Maple Syrup Producers Association, former board member 6 years of the Bruce Peninsula Bird Observatory. I'm an honorary member 2013 of the Owen Sound Field Naturalist Club. I'm the recipient of the Award of Merit 2020 from the Ontario Maple Syrup Producers Association. And I'm a member of the Owen Sound Field Naturalist, Saugeen Field Naturalist, Bruce Ski Club, Sauble Beach Cross Country Ski Club, and Kemble Sarawak United Church. On the SASE survey, I came up as alarmed as well, and I too have a few kids and several grandchildren. I'm certainly concerned about their future and the future generations beyond them if things continue the way they are. The primary climate change municipal committee focus to learn more about climate change issues and to determine a way forward to minimize or reduce impacts for ourselves and future generations. And what do I hope we can accomplish? I hope that we can come up with a realistic climate action plan or strategy for the township that will be successful in reducing or mitigating CO2 emissions. One that will show the rest of the province by example that Georgian Bluffs is truly a leader in fighting climate change. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you. And Luke.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Luke Sanfleet. As you can hear, I was born and raised in Holland and came to Georgian Bluffs in 1999. Met my wife in Africa, did humanitarian work, and anyway, we ended up in Big Bay and never left, and completely in love with the area. Let me start with the sassy score. I'm also very sassy. I'm also alarmed. And in part, that's because of my work. I have a company, a consultancy company, and I work largely with oil and mining and wind and solar companies around the world in their relations with local communities. So a lot of conflict resolution, human rights assessments. So I travel a lot, have actually quite a bit of carbon footprint, which is a reason of concern. But it also allows me to talk to many people around the world about their lives. And I see over and over and over that climate change is real. It is not something that is an optional. It really changes people's lives. You don't have to tell a nomad in Africa or a farmer in Pakistan that the rain pattern has changed. They live it, and they're suffering because of it. And then I come back to Georgian Bluffs, and I am completely in awe with the beauty we have, with the privilege, really the privilege of living here. And I'm also looking at, of course, it necessarily doesn't have the same impact, climate change, on us as it has on the plains in Africa, but it is definitely affecting us and our future generations. So we in our households have had, with our kids, discussions about, well, we can buy a different car or install solar, but it is really about reduction. It's about changing a lifestyle, and it is coming our way. So for me, I see this group as providing a real opportunity to, like what others have said, to be an example and to really use the assets that we have in the municipality to be an example, but also to make a genuine impact. And I really like what Jen said. For me, it's like it's not so much about it's combining development, which is inevitable. Who doesn't want to live in this area? And we have to also have a tax base. But for me, it's about the how. How do we develop in a way that is smart development? Let me put it that way. How do we? It's not anti-development. It's smart development, and in a way that allows us to prosper and to do it in a way that really is looking at our children and to say, well, this is we leave something good for you. So I'm actually very excited about this. I tremendously appreciate that this initiative actually came from you, from the municipality, that when we had our last discussion, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Excellent. I think that's everybody other than me, Brittany.
Thank you. We actually have Danuta on the line. It's just her video is not enabled right now, but she's with us.
Yes. Okay. So Danuta is next then. Sorry, Danuta.
Oh, bye. There we are. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Profiling thing. I've been a resident of Georgian Bluffs since 2005. We bought the property here in 2003, built a house. I have a Bachelor of Applied Science in Physiotherapy. I've traveled widely. I was actually born in Meaford, but ever since then I've traveled quite a bit. and ended up coming to a stop in Georgian Bluffs. I retired in 2015 from the senior physiotherapist position at Great British Health Services in Owen Sound. And I volunteered and a member of the Bruce Trail Conservancy. I volunteered with the Alzheimer's Society, the Ontario Physiotherapy Association, and the Canadian Cancer Society over the years. I rate alarmed on the SASE score, which is why I'm here. My primary climate change municipal committee focus is to contribute to and support planning for adaptation to and mitigation of climate change in Georgian Bluffs by participating in the Climate Change Action Committee to the best of my ability. And I certainly echo what all my other peers have said, what you have all said, as far as what we hope this committee will accomplish. I really can't add anything new to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Danuta. Okay, last, but hopefully not least, I'm Kathy Moore-Coburn. I'm a first-term councillor with Georgian Bluffs. We have lived in Georgian Bluffs for 15 years now. I come from a farming background in a little hamlet in Grey County, the most southeastern corner, called Badgerose. So we have potatoes and beef. I'm also a retired registered nurse. My background is so similar to yours, Anne. It's uncanny. So I am a retired registered nurse. My educational background is in the sciences. I'm a graduate of McMaster University, where I got my undergraduate degree, and then went on to get a master's degree in science as well. My background as a public health nurse is mostly in infectious and communicable diseases. I was also a certified infection control practitioner. And so these are very interesting days for me to be watching on the sidelines with the pandemic and not being in the middle of it. I feel sometimes like I have FOMO, that fear of missing out, but at the same time, I'm glad I'm not on the front lines dealing with all of that right now too. I have acted as a mental health and addictions nurse for children and youth with CCAC, and I worked in the school system, providing therapy to mostly kids between 3 and actually 21 years of age with mental health issues. I was a sexual assault and domestic violence nurse examiner at the Owen Sound Hospital, which was probably the most difficult role I have ever had. And I have been a professor of nursing on faculty with Georgian College, York University, and Ryerson University. And that's really where my true love is in the teaching world. I have been a consultant, an editor, writer, for the health unit and for a large pharmaceutical company as well. I became involved in the climate change discussion, sadly not that many years ago, spurred along by my 2 adult children who are social activists and very much proponents of climate action. And of course, inspired by Greta, and have attended several climate action rallies here and not so far from here as well. Active in my community, past and present member of Big Brothers Big Sisters, board of directors of Crime Stoppers, steering committee and advisory board of an immunization education initiative that was Canada-wide. On the board of the Canadian Mental Health Association in the past for Grey Bruce, Summer Folk Music Festival, and I'm currently on the board of directors for the Blue Water Curling Club. So if anyone's thinking of joining curling next year, please come and talk to me later. I also rated alarmed in the SASE rating. And my goals are similar to everyone else's. I want to develop a vision I want us to have some short-term goals that address not just adaptation, but mitigation as well. And I want us to have some long-term goals that we can take back to council and hopefully put into action in a relatively short period of time. As well as others, I think it's important to motivate and educate our community members, our council, and our staff. I think that's already been touched on. And also involve all affected stakeholders so that we get buy-in from the bigger population. Yeah, and I would just add that I think it's important to perhaps start by noting what we're already doing as a council and a municipality for climate change. I know Jen has provided me with information along those lines, and I think it's a nice starting point, a good baseline to know what we are doing, and then to move on and expand from there. So that's me in a nutshell. Looking forward to working with everybody. I think this is a fantastic committee, lots of experience and expertise. So I will move on to agenda item number 5, and Brittany is going to give us an overview of our council procedures. No, she's not. She's telling me something else.
Sorry. Member Ann Schneider, or Vice Chair, I should call her, has her hand raised.
Oh, I see that down at the bottom. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ann.
That's okay. I just wanted to say that what a strong group of folks we've got around at this virtual table, and I really appreciate being part of it. So just thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, awesome. I feel the same way. Okay. Then I think I can turn it over to Brittany to go over some of our committee policies and procedures.
Thank you, Chair Coburn. Thank you, members. I agree with our Vice Chair in that it seems we have a lot of great people around the table, and I know you guys will do great things for Georgian Bluffs. So thank you for dedicating your time to better your community. We greatly appreciate whenever the public gets involved in council and committee business. So thank you. So I have developed a brief presentation for you guys today. I do intend to keep it fairly high level and fairly brief, as I said, as I don't want to necessarily overwhelm. All of our procedures do blanket council as well as all committees. Committees by virtue are much less formal than council. So some of the things I will detail today will be fairly high level for you guys and may not ever apply to this committee. However, as public officials, you do need to have the information. So I do intend to keep this presentation fairly informal as well. So if you have any questions, please raise your virtual hand throughout the presentation. There will be a period at the end of my presentation that we can have a brief question and answer session. As always, you can reach out to me with any questions, and I will be happy to assist you as you move into this new role. So without further ado, unless there's any questions prior to us getting started, I will share my screen with you so you can see the slides and I will move through them. But in that circumstance, I do request that you do raise your virtual hand, as I will be unable to see the majority of you once I share my screen. Okay, so I don't see any virtual hands, so just bear with me for 1 second. Just confirming that everyone can see my screen. Is that a yes? Kathy, yep. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so let's get started. So welcome to Georgian Bluffs, everybody. We're very excited to have you here. So as I said, we're just going to move through some of the procedures that will apply to this committee. I apologize, there is a high level of detail, and I did append quite a few documents to this presentation for your information, and I do recognize that there was a lot of information in there. I will be briefly touching upon most of it this morning, but have a peruse through, take a read through our code of conduct and our procedure bylaw, and send me any questions that you feel may apply to your time spent on the committee. I'm always happy to talk procedures. So to start, I took this directly from your terms of reference. Those were approved by council previously. We will be formalizing appointments in December for all of our committees as well as this one. So you will all be formally recognized by bylaw later on this year. Likely at their first meeting in December, I will have a report presenting your appointments. So we're excited to have you. We're excited to have our Climate Change Committee present their recommendations to our council as per your mandate. So the committee composition, we have 2 of our Georgian Bluffs Council, and as I said, everyone will be formally appointed by bylaw later on this year. We've completed our election of a vice chair and a chair, which is mandated by your terms of reference. And we have a quorum of 4 of 7. So quorum is defined by the Municipal Act as the majority of a committee or the majority of a council. So that stands to reason that we will have to have 4 of 7 members attend each meeting in order for there to be a quorum. If there is not a quorum of members, then it is not considered a meeting. So now we get into our largest document that I sent you. This is our procedure bylaw. Procedure bylaws govern the proceedings of council and committees. So quite literally the procedures and proceedings of every meeting of council and committees. So as you'll see in the document that I provided to you, it is fairly lengthy and speaks to almost everything that happens in a meeting. We are required to have one by the Municipal Act. It is written directly into the legislation under section 238(2). Our agenda structure is also detailed by the Township Procedure Bylaw. However, as a committee, you have the ability to structure the agenda as you see fit. So for our first agenda, I have taken the current structure of a committee of the whole or a council meeting, simply until we decide what works for us and what doesn't work for us. We can add standing agenda items as we see fit. For example, I see work plan discussions or work plan updates becoming a regular agenda item that would form a part of your agendas. As per the Municipal Act and further to our Township Procedure Bylaw, should this committee ever require a closed session discussion, which I frankly don't anticipate being the case, but should we ever need to, we have the ability to do so. However, the Municipal Act and our Procedure Bylaw govern the reasons of which we can go into closed session. As a clerk, I am always a proponent of open is better. If we can have the discussion in open session, I always recommend that we do so, simply to uphold our principles of open and responsible governance. But if you turn to section 11 of our procedure bylaw, it does outline the justifications to go into closed session. Most predominantly, we would use personal information about an identifiable individual or negotiations, etc. But as I said, I don't anticipate us running into this very often, but should we have the opportunity to do so. As also defined in the Municipal Act and the procedure bylaw, we have our chair as well as our members' responsibilities. So that is outlined in section 12 of our procedure bylaw and 13 for members. While the chair proceeds over the meeting, the chair does not necessarily have any more voting power than that of a member. So I just wanted to make that clear so everyone knows we're kind of on an equal playing field. The chair is the organizer of the meeting and will open discussion on motions as well as call upon each member to make their comments. So the chair simply organizes and leads the meeting to ensure all members have the ability to speak and create their own comments. Members, you're responsible for attending scheduled meetings. If you cannot attend a meeting, I simply ask that you either notify both the chair and myself or one of us so we can be prepared for your absence and further ensure that we have quorum at the meeting. You're also responsible for carefully considering all of the information in front of you to inform the decision-making process. Again, this ties back to having an efficient meeting. And as I said, it is expected that all members come prepared to every meeting with the necessary information being read, being all of the information that's provided to you in your agenda packages. I wanted to highlight sections E through G of your roles as members in our procedure bylaw, being that you are responsible to vote on all matters unless prohibited by law. The only thing that would prohibit you from voting on a motion would be if you have declared a pecuniary interest, which we will review later in these slides. I also wanted to highlight your responsibility for ensuring that all confidential information remains as so. I will be circulating a confidentiality pledge to all of you later this afternoon virtually. I just ask that you sign it, just acknowledging your responsibility as committee members and ensuring that confidential information remains closed. And finally, that you advise the chair or the clerk of any absences, as I mentioned. Especially as we move into our electronic world, it is good to know who's around the table and who's not. So that is a brief kind of overview of your roles as both members and the role of chair. Do I see any questions at this point in the meeting? Kathy, if you can shake your head or nod your head, you're the only one I can see right now. Thank you. All right, so moving forward.
Hello?
Oh, sorry, Brittany.
Yeah, Brittany?
We do have a question and it's Bob.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
I don't have anything on my screen at all other than a round circle with BD in it. So I don't know whether that can be fixed or not.
Can you see did you see the slides that Brittany was showing on your screen, Bob? Oh.
No, I didn't see any slides at all.
That's interesting.
I'm on an iPad here. Maybe that's different. I don't know.
It shouldn't be any different.
I'm on an iPad and I can see the slideshow.
Okay.
So, Bob, it may be that you're just in the wrong section of Teams. Can you try collapsing your screen and opening it?
So closing it and
simply minimizing it.
Minimizing it. Okay. Okay.
So alternatively, Bob, this was provided to you in your agenda package. So if you'd like to follow along in your agenda.
Yeah, I did read that in advance. So, okay, now I've lost that. Now I've lost everything, I think.
So select your Teams icon in your menu.
Okay, I just have to find it. Oh, I see it. Yes. Okay, I just selected it. Yeah, I've got your little pictures back at the bottom. I don't want to hold you up here, not to worry.
Okay, so can you see my slides now, or are you going to follow along in your agenda package?
I'll just follow along. I'll just listen to you. How's that? Because I've read all the material.
Okay.
And so Anne also has a question, Brittany, when you're ready.
Okay, Anne, go ahead.
I just wondered what the open share tray is and whether that would help Bob out, whether it's shut down for him.
The which, sorry?
There's an icon that is open share tray, and I don't know whether that's related to share screen.
I have no idea. I'm not sure what that is. So if there's no more questions around the table.
Sorry, I just have one quick one, Brittany.
Okay.
If that's okay. So agenda items coming forward from committee members, should those go to you, to Krista, or to me? Who decides on the agenda going forward?
The clerk decides on agendas in coordination with the chair. So if anyone has any additions to the agenda, they can feel free to send them over to me.
Thank you. Any other questions about Brittany's presentation and policy and procedure?
Yeah, at some point, I know I was reading about communications last night when I was going through the document, and I don't know whether you hit that yet in your slides or not, but I had some questions about that.
So we're still on our first slide.
Okay.
So we're getting there.
All right. All right.
Okay, so moving on, we'll touch on motions now. And Bob, can I just ask you to mute your microphone, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So all decisions of council and committees are made by motion. We do this to formalize all of our decisions and track them appropriately. The committee can also give direction to staff if they feel it is necessary. I always prefer that people create formal procedures and adopt things by motion. Motions and amendments are addressed in section 29, 30, and 31 of the Township Procedure Bylaw, again, which is amended or appended to the presentation for your review. As we've seen already in this meeting, all motions are moved, seconded, and placed on the floor for discussion. That is facilitated by the chair. Once the motion is moved and seconded, the chair will open discussion and call upon each member to make their comments. Motions require the majority support of the committee, and as we said, the majority of the committee, i.e. quorum, is 4 of 7. Any motions that do not carry are simply lost. All motions may be reconsidered. However, there are some procedures that do follow reconsideration in that you can only reconsider one motion once per calendar year. Motions do sometimes get a little complicated when we get into amendments. Our council has seen that in the past. I hope that the informal nature of this committee will help us move through some of those amendments. And as I said, you know, we will operate on a more informal basis as we are simply a committee of council. However, we do need to recognize some formal procedures to ensure that our recommendations to our council are clearly indicated. Throughout electronic meetings, we've been trying different things with taking votes in opposition, taking votes for. We have landed on a show of hands for votes, as is dictated by our procedure bylaw. However, when we were all around a virtual table, we did find that it was best to have recorded votes, as you know, some people were getting used to having their videos enabled, etc. We were still struggling with the technology. So I'd like us to start by taking votes by showing of hands rather than recording, as it does make for a lengthy meeting. However, if we find that the showing of hands is not working for us, then we can adapt as necessary. And section 29 of the procedure bylaw specifically speaks to notices of motion. So I recommend this for all of our council and committees, in that should this committee like to indicate their support for something to council or indicate their support to another municipality, simply notify myself or the chair that you are providing notice of motion, and we will create a motion tailored to your support for consideration and potential enactment of the committee. Notice of motion is basically just saying, hey, I like this idea, let's support it. And then we make it fancy for you. So that's kind of a brief overview of motions. I know that I just covered a lot of information, and as I said, we will move through this and it will become second nature for you. It seems like a lot at first, but it's not. Do I have any questions about motions before I move on?
There is a question, Brittany, and all I can see is L on the circle, so I'm not even sure who that is.
I'm assuming it's
Probably
Luke.
Luke.
Oh, Luke. I'm sorry, Luke, of course.
No worries. Just L is okay. I like the democratic nature of majority support, but I do think at some point it would be quite nice to think about us as a committee of council and trying to get to, we're all hopefully on the same page. And we talked about this in preparation for this meeting amongst ourselves a little bit in terms of what the intent, I think, from our perspective is very much to do this by consensus, because we still have a motion that needs to pass council. And practically speaking, if we have a motion that squeaks by 4-3, then clearly there isn't enough of a support base amongst ourselves to actually move that forward. So although I appreciate and acknowledge the formal procedure, I would like to express a hope that everything we do is actually unanimously supported, because then there is then the motion still needs to be approved by council, and if that's a divided vote, that's the way how it works. But I hope that at least we can be united in everything we propose. Also, as a bit of a reality check, if we are not unanimous ourselves, then it becomes more, it affects the credibility of that we recommend to council. So it's just that's just my perception of the. When I read this, I realized that this works for a council, but I think for this particular committee, I'd like to think we can do, wouldn't say better, but make it a little bit more unanimous as the intent.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Luke, because we do want, if we can reach consensus, I think that's definitely preferable for the reasons that you state. I'm not sure what Brittany's thoughts are, but if we're not doing a recorded vote, at least initially, then I'm assuming, and Brittany can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm calling for a show of hands and by majority it passes, whether it's 7-4 and 0 against or 4-3, I would think that the minutes would likely just reflect that motion passed, not the number of votes. So I'm hoping that's the case. Brittany, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would certainly give council the indication that as a committee we're supporting that particular motion.
So yes, Chair Coburn, you are correct. That is how the minutes are reflected. Unless it is a recorded vote, the votes are not literally recorded in the minutes. So for example, when council is divided on a certain topic, we request a recorded vote so that everyone can indicate how they are voting and etc. In response to Luke's comments, I appreciate the committee's willingness to, work together to come to a final agreement or consent on any item. And I would say the minutes will be presented to council in their consent agenda. However, the work plan and action items will not be presented to council until the committee is happy with those documents, until the committee feels as a whole that they have put their best foot forward and this is what needs to go in front of council. So while council will see your minutes, we won't necessarily bring action items to them after every meeting of this committee. We'll take our time and tailor them to ensure that all members are pleased with the document that we're presenting. So I don't know if that answers or addresses your concerns, Luke.
He's indicating that it does, Brittany.
Yeah.
Perfect. Do we have any other questions, Chair?
Not that I can see.
Okay, so we'll move on. Declaration of pecuniary interest. So as Chair Coburn has briefly indicated, at the beginning of each meeting, all members are required to declare a pecuniary interest if it exists. both verbally and in writing to the clerk. Now, changes to the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act in 2018 require that each municipality maintain a registry of written declarations of pecuniary interests. So that's why you have to do so verbally as well as in writing to myself. I appended our form to this presentation, so you have it. Pecuniary interests are strictly limited to financial interests. There's been a lot of lobbying happening on the provincial level to have that changed to just speak to overall interests. There's no formal action on that yet, but I'm not sure if anyone follows local politics, but the town of Collingwood recently finished a long-winded judicial review, and one of the 300 recommendations is recommending to the province that this specific wording be amended to not only speak to pecuniary interest, but rather a larger general interest. So the declaration of pecuniary interest is directly spoken to and overviewed by the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. They speak directly to indirect and direct interests, and I have pulled up the applicable section in the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act so everyone can see what an indirect and a direct interest is, because I know that it is slightly confusing because we are speaking to only financial interests in this regard. So this section outlines indirect interests. If you have a direct interest, it means it physically or literally applies to yourself. If you have an indirect interest, you fall into section 2 or 3. 3 speaks directly to the parent or the spouse or any child. So, conflict of interest and pecuniary interests can be a large topic and a difficult one to wrap your head around. If you ever have any questions or feel as though you may have an interest, you can either speak to myself, you can run it by the chair, or you can run it by our Township Integrity Commissioner, which we will also get into later on in these slides. But that's a high-level overview of what a pecuniary interest is. Essentially, if you feel you may have an interest, I always say it's best to indicate so, just to avoid any perception of hiding any interests. Chair, do we have any questions at this point? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to our code of conduct, and this ties very nicely to our declaration of pecuniary interest. So changes to the Municipal Act in 2018, similar to the ones that require us to have a registry of declarations of interest, required that each council and committee of council adopt a code of conduct. Our code of conduct is wide-reaching in that it applies to all boards and committees established of council, as well as council itself. So, first, I want to overview the principles and values. That's section 5.2 of the amended document. I'm simply stating these sections so you guys know what you're looking for should you review these documents later. So your overriding general principles and values as established by the Code of Conduct, I wanted to highlight just a couple for you. Members will maintain professionalism, integrity, respect, and trust, and members will promote open, accountable, and transparent local government. Those are 2 big ones that we always have to ensure we are recognizing in every decision that we make. Even though we are simply a committee of council, we should hold ourselves to the same standards that a formal council would and ensure all of our decisions are open, and we encourage the public to participate, and we always treat each other respectfully with the utmost professionalism. Our code of conduct further speaks to the confidentiality piece that I had briefly mentioned earlier. As members of the township, you are expected to ensure confidentiality to the utmost respect. I'm sure you will. I just have to hammer that home. And as I said, I will be circulating our pledge to each of you later. Our code of conduct also speaks to gifts. I don't believe that this will become an issue for this committee. However, it's important for you to have all of your information prior to taking on this role. Our code of conduct, section 5.3.3D, allows members to accept gifts up to a value of $300. There is also a public reporting process that goes along with that. I would suggest that should this ever become an issue, that you as a committee contact township staff as well as the chair, and we can move forward appropriately. I don't believe this will become an issue. However, should it, we will deal with it then. As part of the amendments to the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, as well as the Municipal Act, the township was required to appoint a Township Integrity Commissioner. The Township Integrity Commissioner is simply as it sounds. They uphold the integrity of the public decision process. So should you ever have a feeling that you may have a pecuniary interest in an item, they are the most appropriate party to be reaching out to for advice, as they are an independent third party of the township, therefore can remain completely objective. Should a member of the public or a member of any committee or board ever feel as though a member has violated either the Declaration of Pecuniary Interest or the Code of Conduct, they have the opportunity to either make an informal complaint or a formal complaint. Informal is basically as it sounds. We keep it in-house, for a better word. So if, for lack of a better word, so if a committee member feels as though they're being mistreated or someone is not adhering to the code of conduct, they may approach either myself or the chair to have an informal discussion. Should you feel that is not enough or formal enough, you have the opportunity to make a formal complaint to the Township Integrity Commissioner. We appointed in Principals Integrity in 2019. They are wonderful people. They are both ex-lawyers who have endless wealth of information to pass on to both, staff as well as the committee. Do we have any questions about the code of conduct at this point?
I don't see any, Brittany.
Okay, thank you. So now we're on to our communication slide. So John, I'll get through my little blurb and then ask away. So I wanted to hammer home the communications piece following our code of conduct discussion, as it ties directly into maintaining open and responsible government. So all communication between the committee ideally should happen in an open scheduled meeting, so the public is aware of what we're discussing and the decisions that we're making. To add a topic for discussion, you can always ask myself, or you can pass it along to the chair, who will then ask me to put it on the agenda. All members are able to add anything to an agenda that they feel needs to be discussed. So if you do feel as though you have a question or etc., put it on an agenda so we ensure we're upholding our ability to maintain openness throughout this process. Something that, a lot of municipalities have struggled with the introduction of email communication is email debating between councils or committees with a quorum of the members. So going back to our first slide, you'll remember that quorum is a majority of members of council or committee. So as soon as there's 4 members of this committee CC'd on an email, it becomes essentially a closed meeting of that committee, because there is a quorum of members participating in this email debate. The Ontario Ombudsman's Office, I always call them everyone in the press refers to them as the watchdog of Ontario. So whenever municipalities for example, a member of the public could complain to the Ontario Ombudsman's office about what the municipality is doing. This is how people also complain about closed session discussions. So should a member of the public feel as though we were having an illegal closed meeting, they would report that to the Ontario Ombudsman's office, who would then investigate us. Knock on wood, I hope that we never ever have a closed session investigation, because we're being open and we're maintaining our openness to the public. However, there is some case law that suggests email correspondence between quorum of council or committee is an illegal closed meeting, and multiple municipalities have been have had their wrists slapped in regards to this specific thing. So I would really like to have all of our discussions on an open agenda so we don't get ourselves into any unnecessary trouble. I also would like the committee to acknowledge that, you know, staff direction is given as a whole. Staff direction does not come from one particular member. So as a whole committee, direction to staff is provided, not just as one particular member. And John, I know you had a lot of questions, so go ahead.
Yeah, that was probably me, I guess. It's Bob here.
Oh, sorry, Bob. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. No, that was the section that I was that when I was reading that, I was concerned about that, because, you know, so far the five of us that have been, you know, dealing with some of the climate change stuff before today have been firing emails back and forth and having discussions and that sort of thing, and that's normally how we've been doing business. And I just don't know whether we'll be able to continue as well, having to have everything in a scheduled meeting. You know, in other words, we won't be able to talk amongst ourselves in between meetings, I guess, if we have more than 4 of us on a call. So
my response to that would be, I recognize that this committee will not necessarily meet once a month. We might meet bi-monthly, we may meet less than that, depending on how much time needs to go into a work plan. I would simply suggest that if you continue to have email correspondence, that you do not make formal committee decisions in said correspondence. If you're simply corresponding about, you know, oh, how do you feel about, you know, this section, do you feel the wording needs changing? That's one thing. But if you're effectively making committee decisions in an email, that's where we'll run into issues.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. And I was just going to make that same clarification. You get into problems with violating closed session rules when A, you have a quorum, and B, you're moving forward the business of the committee or the council. So if you're sharing information, but you're not making decisions on behalf of the committee or directing staff to follow up on anything or do anything, then technically you're not violating that closed session principle. So both of those criteria have to be in place. And I see that Anne has a question or a comment as well.
Yeah, I think this is worth really talking about, so we're clear about what we can and can't do. So I think the strength of having the 5 of us part of this committee is that among us, we've got a fair bit of information, but we've also got a bunch of people behind us that have a lot of information. And I think we have the ability to kind of filter through stuff to then share with our committee. And I want to make sure that we can continue being able to do that, because I think that's part of the strength of us being at the table. So that's, I think, filtering through information and kind of saying, yep, that's relevant for the table, maybe not so much. I don't see us doing decision making there as kind of really helping sort through a morass of stuff that's out there that as a committee we need to just really be able to work our way through.
Yeah, those are for sure good comments, and Cassandra has her hand raised here as well.
Yes, thank you. So my comment was going to be that this committee actually does not have the authority to direct staff. So if there is something that this committee feels that staff should be doing, that is a recommendation that you make to council, and then our council will direct staff. So staff are going to attend these meetings, you know, to be involved and be informed, but you are unable to directly direct us. All that has to go through council. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thanks, Cassie. Sue. Not hearing you, Sue. I wonder if you're on mute.
Sorry. Put my hand down, forgot to unmute. Thanks, Kathy. I'm thinking with this committee, what we're going to end up doing is probably giving groups of people direction or request to bring back further information to the committee. And in that case, if you're working between yourselves in a group of 4 or 5, you're working at the direction of the committee to bring that report back. So you're not furthering anything, you're actually working with the direction you're given, is the way I see it. So I'll ask Brittany if maybe that's more of what's happening if the group is working together in that way.
Yes, so I agree with your comments, Sue, as well as your comments, Kathy. Part of the definition of a meeting from the Municipal Act is 1 quorum and 2 topics of discussion, right? So we have to be meeting with a quorum and we have to be furthering the business of the committee or of the township. So if we're working in collaboration with our groups further to committee direction, I don't see that being an issue, but I do want the committee to be aware that this precedent has been set. So we just have to be mindful of our communication and email to ensure that we are not even treading any inappropriate lines. So I don't believe that will become an issue on this committee. However, it's important for all public officials to understand the effect that their communication has on the decision-making process.
Thanks, Brittany. And Luke.
Yeah, Brittany, just and not to belabor the issue, but I just wondered, in our situation, if we do some further research or we consult with other members that have particular types of information, and we bring it back to this committee, I am just trying to understand. I would imagine that there is actually no other way for a quorum to actually take decisions or direct or make a motion towards council outside this particular session. So I'm not quite understand. I wonder if I understand where the issue actually may lie, because if this is the only forum where we can actually move a motion, then where's the sensitivity? Just trying to understand where the potential obstacles are or the sensitivities are.
So if I can recall one particular example from the Ontario Ombudsman's office, a particular municipality, and all of these reports are available on the Ombudsman's website. A particular municipality had a quorum of council debating the annual budget in an email chain. The quorum of council had made a decision in that email chain regarding how they would vote on a particular matter in the budget. That is when the alarm bells went off at the Ontario Ombudsman's office. And as per their best meeting practices, I've recommended that people, stray away from email communication, as it does not uphold the principles of open and transparent government.
Got it.
So
got it. Thank you.
I think
Very
that
helpful.
I know that example is very different from what this committee will be undertaking. I just I like to make this clear so that we can avoid any kind of complications in the future.
Yeah,
so
good point.
I guess to leave on this note, information sharing is fine. Decision making is not. If you feel as though you're teetering the decision making process, stop, and ask myself to add the discussion topic to a future agenda for the entire committee to debate.
Thanks,
Okay.
Brittany. That totally makes sense. The notion is not to tie our hands so that we can't have discussions outside of this committee. That's important in order to bring quality information back to the committee that's done in an efficient way and that we're not duplicating efforts. So yeah, I think Brittany's stating clearly where we start to cross the line is when decisions are being made on behalf of a group of people for the entire committee. So, and another question. Oh my gosh, is that Anne? I think that's Anne.
And I just want to clarify, when we're talking about decisions being made, we're really talking about decisions that are going to be directed for council around actions. We're not talking about we need to get information about this, or this is a really good report on that.
That's correct. Both of those things would feel information-based to me rather than decision-based.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Chair Coburn, do we have any other hands raised around the table?
Anne's is still raised, but I imagine I'll lower it. I think that's probably Anne from your previous question. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah, carry on, Brittany. Thank you.
Okay, we are nearing our completion. I know I've given you a lot of information today, so as our final informational slide, we have our electronic participation. Appended to your presentation is our electronic participation policy, COU 02-2020. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the province allowed each municipal council to amend their procedure bylaws to permit electronic-based meetings. So council first amended their procedure bylaw to permit this form of meetings in March, in April, when COVID was at the height of its first outbreak. And we have just recently amended our procedure bylaw to allow electronic participation both in an emergency period and outside of an emergency period. So as you will see in the appended electronic participation policy, there is a difference between an emergency period and a non-emergency period. During an emergency period, all members can attend all meetings virtually. So we are currently in a declared state of emergency in the Township of Georgian Bluffs. Therefore, this committee may meet on a completely virtual basis for the foreseeable future. Should we ever move back into the council chambers for this committee, then a certain portion of members is required to be in council chambers simply to facilitate public attendance if people would like to sit in person on these meetings. But for now, all participation is being limited to electronic means. People can call into meetings, they can video into meetings, or they can watch the live stream on YouTube. So while we are meeting on a completely virtual platform, we are completely open to and accessible to the public. Does anybody have any questions about electronic participation? None? Okay. That is the bulk of my presentation. If anybody has any questions, now is the time to ask. Alternatively, as I said, read through the documents. I know there's a lot, and send me any questions. We're here to help. Chair Coburn, do you see any questions around the table?
I don't see any at this time. Oh, okay. I lied. Bob.
Yeah, thank you. When I was reading through the material, I wondered, there was a description over an advisory committee versus an ad hoc committee. Mm-hmm. That was on page 18. And which one are we? Are we an advisory committee then?
You are a standing committee.
A standing committee. Oh, I didn't read that one. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Standing and advisory are relatively the same. You are advising council as to appropriate climate actions. So you are a subcommittee of council. An ad hoc committee is literally that. It's an ad hoc basis. It meets not regularly, and it is not always necessarily a subsect of council.
Okay, so we're not an ad hoc committee, but we're a standing committee, which is basically an advisory committee.
Yes, if that's not confusing.
All right, fair enough. Thank you.
Any other questions for Brittany? I'm not seeing any, Brittany. Thank you very much for that presentation. That's, oh, it looks like you have more.
Well, I just wanted to include this information so everyone has the appropriate contact information for your staff resources. And as I said, staff are here to help. So shoot us an email, ask us questions. We're here for your assistance. And if there's no other questions, that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Brittany. Our staff is certainly very approachable folks, so don't hesitate if you have a question that you think they can help you with. They're very responsive and very approachable and very knowledgeable. So thank you, Brittany. That was excellent. I find even though I look at those documents and acts and regulations, it's just really helpful to always have those reminders as well. Okay, so moving on to agenda item number 6, we have no delegations, we have no correspondence, there are no staff reports today. Public question period, I don't know if you had been, I doubt, Brittany, that you've received any questions from the public?
No, I have not. Sorry, I was struggling with my mic there.
No problem. Number 10, unfinished business. We don't have any because this is our first meeting. So on to number 11, new business. And we can talk about, I wonder if we should be talking about how we move forward from here, creating a committee work plan. Discussions around goals. Is that something we want to do today? I'm cognizant of the time. It's 11:30 already. We can perhaps move that one on to the next meeting. We do need to establish a committee meeting schedule, so that would be important to do before the end of the meeting today. And I did have one question for the group. I'm more familiar with this type of committee being called a climate action committee. I see that we have called it the Climate Change Action Committee. Is there a difference? Is there a preference? Just looking for your input. No preference? Okay, Anne, sorry.
I think a climate action committee is easier to say.
I agree. I think that says it all, and it seems to be consistent with the other groups that are out there as well. So unless that's a problem, Brittany, I think this committee can be called the Climate Action Committee. Okay. Would this be an appropriate time to talk about a meeting schedule? How often we want to meet and what date might work well for some people, or what day of the week? Do we want to send out a poll? What would be the easiest way of doing this? Do we want to have a discussion now or have that conversation by a poll? Brittany?
Thank you, Chair. I think at this point, I think it may be beneficial if we don't hammer down a date. I think it may be beneficial to determine how often we'd like to meet, if that's on a monthly basis or a bi-monthly basis. And then we can get into what day or what time works best for the overall committee. So if we could make that clarification today, then I can create a poll and determine the next day that the committee will meet.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so your thoughts on how often we should meet? Anne?
I think initially it would be really good if we meet every couple of weeks to try to really get organized and figure out how we approach this task, and that at some point we may be able to shift into monthly, but I think we'll know when we've gotten there.
I would agree with that too. I think we don't want to lose any momentum. So I'm not sure about staff availability. I do see Deputy Mayor Carlton nodding her head. Cassie, do you have a comment?
Yes, so my comment is about staff availability. You know, you are required to have a recording secretary there, and that is going to be Brittany. And she does have a lot of other meetings that she needs to attend. And, you know, with agenda requirements, I do think every couple of weeks is going to be kind of burdensome on her. I appreciate that you guys have a lot to do at the beginning and to get organized. And because we didn't get to talk about your work plan today, I do think another meeting before the end of the year would be beneficial. But I also think that every 2 weeks is a little too often. So my recommendation would be that, sorry, just looking at a calendar, that we hold another meeting within the next 3 weeks so that we can talk about work plan and kind of, you know, get some tasks established. But then I would suggest not meeting again until the new year. One, because of the Christmas holidays and vacation times and stuff coming up, and two, because of the burden on staff.
Thanks, Cassie. Other comments, Anne?
So I certainly respect the burden on staff, and we don't want to create additional burden because I think you've got a lot on your plate. I do wonder, is it possible for another committee member to take notes kind of if we have an interim meeting? And I don't know whether that fits into your process or not.
Brittany?
Thank you. So it is a requirement by law through the Municipal Act that any committee of council or council have an appointed clerk in attendance at each meeting. So while I appreciate the offer for the committee to, you know, facilitate their own minute taking, I do have to be here by virtue of my role. So I think Cassie kind of hit it on the head on the nail there. We do, I think, need to have another meeting prior to the end of the year to get the work plan going, and then establish a meeting, even if it's in early January or mid-January, to meet again, go over it. And then, you know, at that point, we can see where we are. If we feel we need to meet more than a monthly basis at the beginning, then hopefully the new year will bring less challenges for staff, and then potentially we will have more time to schedule fairly regular meetings.
So thanks, Brittany. That's helpful. If you were unable to be at a meeting, you can appoint someone to act in your place, such as Krista, to attend, to take minutes. Is that correct? Is that a possibility?
So that's correct. Cassandra Rocca is currently our appointed deputy clerk, so she could fulfill that role.
I guess I was just looking for someone who might be a little less busy than the two of you right now. So that's why and I don't even know what Krista's workload is like. She's probably overwhelmed too. Sue?
Maybe go to Cassie first. I just
Okay.
comment about next meeting.
Sure.
Yeah, so I was just going to say Brittany and I are kind of it right now. So if we could just schedule the next meeting, and then let's just go meeting by meeting. Like, let's go from there. Like, things are constantly changing at this township, and workloads and priorities are shifting, you know, so maybe we can make it work. But for now, let's just go meeting by meeting and see where we end up at. And, you know, with the holidays coming too, I do think it would be quite difficult to get into meetings before the end of the year. But we will do our best to accommodate the meeting schedule that your team feels you need. But we just want to be, kind of realistic in those expectations.
Thanks, Cassie. Sue?
Thank you. I was just looking ahead, and 3 weeks would put us at Friday, December 4th, if that worked for everybody. And we created that plan at that meeting of what we want to accomplish going forward. So then at that point, we set our January meeting and everybody comes back with maybe some information and such, if that works.
Other comments regarding that timing? That's 3 weeks away. I know Cassie's got her hand raised. I'm just looking to see if you're probably going to tell us, Cassie, that date doesn't work for you guys. So we should maybe go to you next, should we?
No, I was going to say that date is good. And then what each member can do is they can bring forward the things they want to see in a work plan. So that could be everyone's homework, right? To take the next 3 weeks, do some independent research and see what you think that work plan should look like. If you have any materials that you feel would be beneficial for the group to discuss in that work plan, please send to Brittany and we will include them in your agenda. Because, I do think a little bit of research needs to be done before that next meeting anyway, so that we're prepared to have those discussions.
Thanks. Other comments? Luke.
It doesn't have to be December 4th, but what I do think is, as one of the 3 elements of our mandate is also to look at what other municipalities are doing. And as we develop our work plan, I would suggest maybe to ask John, since he has such a widespread experience with what other municipalities are doing, to give us a bit of an overview about actually what's on the table and what's happening around us, so that we know that we can learn from the lessons of other municipalities and kind of expedite the process. And that maybe based on that presentation, it would also help us inform what actually is realistic to put in the work plan and what is a bit overambitious.
No, I think that's a really good point, Luke. In fact, I was reading Grey Highlands, some of their material that their committee has put out before the meeting today. So are you suggesting that we get that, we ask John to do that report for us at the next meeting?
John, what do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely can do that. We just need to be clear on what it is you want, because there's a vast amount of information out there. It can come from different sources. I tend to tilt towards the Federation of Canadian Municipalities program, but there are other programs out there. They kind of scale with the size of the urban centers, but they're always applicable to everyone everywhere. So once we can frame what it is you want a presentation, you want an actual report, and it might be something we do more than once. Maybe we stick our toes in this area and sort of see where we're at, because I don't want to be redundant and I don't want to tell people things they might already know. So maybe we can start off and I could just sort of give a review of the kind of programs that I've been following in communities in Ontario that are typically part of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, PCP. But you're always balancing or bouncing between mitigation and adaptation. So you start off trying to clarify what those two things are. So yeah, I absolutely do that. But let's sort of take it at a lower level first, and then see if we want more information, because I typically overwhelm people with information. That's my experience.
Fair enough. Thank you, John. So can we sorry, I'm just going to get us to bounce back to a date and hammer that down. One suggestion was December 4th. Does December 4th at 10 o'clock work for everyone? Any conflicts where people couldn't attend? No, that looks good. So, okay. So December 4th at 10 a.m. And John will have a presentation for us. Sue and I are also taking the climate action course through FCM. So we are becoming, I think it's fair to say, Sue, more familiar with what other communities like Selkirk, and I try to look for municipalities that are similar in size and demographics as we are, and follow some of the plans that they have put into place. So that would be helpful. And I see, Cassandra, is your hand up anew, or is that left over from?
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to excuse myself from the meeting. I have another meeting to attend, but I wanted to thank everyone for meeting today. And I look forward to seeing you all on the 4th so we can talk about your work plan. So sorry I'm leaving early, but I'm glad we got our first meeting under our belt and that we can continue to move forward now.
Thank you so much for being here, Cassie.
Bye, guys.
Have a good day. Anne.
Thank you, Kathy. There was mention earlier, very early on in the meeting, that the staff are already doing some things regarding climate action. And I think it'd be really good to hear what's happening now as part of this meeting on the 4th.
I agree. Yeah, I've been, I know Sue and I have been picking Jen's brain a little bit for our homework for our course in terms of what we're doing. Is that something you have time to report back on, Jen, or who else might be involved at the staff level for something like that?
Yeah, I can provide a report on the 4th. One of the things that I did want everyone to think about is I'm going to be taking a report forward to council on December 2nd about our requirements to update our official plan. So, you know, maybe within the work plan, when you're thinking of it, think about what wording that we can put into our official plan. If you could please include that in the work plan, that would be really wonderful, because that way, if we have wording in our official plan, then we can also look to include implementation tools into our zoning bylaw, as well as our development agreement requirements for subdivisions and everything. So that would be very helpful. I'm sorry, but I'm also going to have to go because I am going to be joining Cassie for a meeting as well. So thanks very much, everyone, and I will speak with you later.
Thanks, Jen.
Have a nice weekend.
Have a good day. And so I think I saw Bob's hand up earlier. Did I, Bob? No? Anyone else with comments or questions? John?
Unmute. Yeah, just going back to something Jen said very early in the meeting where she would like to get more information from me. My approach would be to contact Jen individually and find out what she wants, and then to start to walk her through there. Is that the right way to go about it, or are there other people maybe that have the same question? And what I'm thinking about here is just, and the way I understood Jen's request was to get a better understanding of how our climate has changed here in South Bruce or Bruce Peninsula, and also how it's going to change in the decades ahead. So I'll just contact Jen and we'll proceed down that line, or should it be more general?
Yeah, Brittany.
Thank you. So John, I think you contacting Jen is totally appropriate, but I think that, you know, whatever information you foresee as useful to the committee should also be brought back for discussion and information of the committee. And whether that's through Jen's report that she had just mentioned or through your presentation that you will put together, I just think it's important that if one person on the committee has the information, then the entirety of the committee has the information.
That makes sense, John?
Yeah, okay, because you know, the material that I'm sharing with Jen, I've shared publicly for years. I teach at the college, I teach this stuff at the college, so it's always available, and it's just a matter of, again, how much do you want?
Oh, I would think it would be important to have those kinds of resources as supporting documents for this committee. How much we use them is yet to be determined, but certainly we need the climate change data that's local. So what's happening now, what's happened since 1980, and what the future projections are for all of the different climate change factors. I think all of that is good supporting data, as well as what we're currently doing. As we said earlier, that's how we move forward, is getting sort of that baseline information.
Okay, that then answers my question, and I'll start with Jen and working through her, and then we'll come back with what we've done, and what was useful to her should be then maybe useful to others. So we'll do it that way.
Mm-hmm. And there could be other departments too that are also have done some work in terms of building the climate conversation or making it routine to their day-to-day business. So I know Cassie has been considering asset management planning using a climate change lens. And certainly our building department, and of course Jen and the planning department, and probably even HR. I'm not sure if our HR manager does some training with new staff around this kind of issue, but it's Jen and the planning department, but it's also bigger than that.
Yeah, and when you look at existing climate action plans, they just about always start off with a scientific review. So that's either done by staff if they have the capacity, or you bring in consultants. So this eventually might actually make its way into a climate action plan as we go forward.
Right. Okay. Luke.
Thank you. I think it is a question for Brittany. It's about external communications. You just mentioned, Kathy, a lot of examples that the municipality is already doing, and as a wider group, we also have a communications committee, and it's about raising public awareness. And one of the things I think would be very helpful is actually to also make known to the wider audience through our channels, either media or our listservs, to actually give credit where credit is due in terms of what the municipality actually already is doing. And to keep people, I mean, I heard from my wife, for example, that you changed your waste collection mechanism, and there's a truck less on the road at this time, and sorting is now taking place differently, different location where it used to be before. I wasn't aware of that, and I think a lot of people would actually very positively respond to that. It's more cost efficient, it's better for the climate, and I wonder maybe for the agenda for December 4th. What is the procedure by which we as a group can actually externally communicate about what's going on? For example, if we want to write an op-ed to the Sun Times and to say, isn't it great that some of these things are happening, or are you aware that some of these things are happening? Is there a specific procedure that we have to go through, especially where it concerns issues that maybe are not publicly known? I don't know, plans that are in the working, or do you say no, as long, focus just on public knowledge, and as long as it doesn't violate or interfere with the confidentiality agreement or the non-disclosure agreement, we are able to externally communicate. Just trying to think if there's some guidance you can provide, because there will be people that will be asking us, okay, what's happening, and as more information becomes available from this committee, it would be wonderful to kind of disseminate it more broadly.
I agree, Luke, and I'm going to get Brittany to respond to that. But I see that external communication and awareness piece as coming a little bit further down the road. And I would imagine, Brittany, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that would be something that we would need council's approval, likely to move forward on in terms of an action of this committee. Brittany?
Thank you. So I have a couple of comments. My first, in response to John's comments, I believe, the report regarding actions of the township will be general to the entirety of the township, not just specifically planning. So that will address kind of, Luke, as you said, we changed our garbage And I hadn't even thought of the climate impact that change would have. So the report will kind of be all inclusive as to, what the planning department is doing, and as Kathy said, what HR is doing, and etc. So then we have all of our cards out on the table, and we can appropriately identify what we're doing and what else needs to be done. As far as the communications piece goes, I think we have to treat it in the same way as we treat communications. So if it's a formal communication that, you're putting in a newspaper or something like, hey, look at what the township is doing, then the township should be involved in that, because when it comes down to it, you guys are a subcommittee of council. So we do have to have council's involvement, and we have to have staff's involvement. If you're simply, sitting on a communications committee, I think I heard you say, Luke, and you say, hey, guess what? The Township of Georgian Bluffs established a climate change, what did we say, a climate action committee to, move forward climate projects in the municipality, then I think that's fine. But if we're formally saying, hey, the township is doing this and we're doing this and this is really cool, I think the township does have to be involved in that. I hope that answers everybody's questions.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. Yeah, and like you say, along with the garbage example, there's all kinds of ways there are all kinds of things that we're doing that we don't necessarily identify as climate action, like reducing our paper consumption, having more facilitating electronic meetings so that we're keeping our cars in the garage and not driving in for meetings all of the time. So, and we've changed our bylaws to be able to accommodate that. Those are all good practical examples of things that we're already doing. Sue.
Thank you. That's what I was going to comment on, some of the things that have been done in the past. And I'm going to use the example. It sits in my mind that when we put sand into the domes for winter maintenance on the roads, salt goes into that at only 3%, so that we never put a huge amount of salt on the roads. So that's something that's been done for a number of years now, actually. Looking at what's in our facilities where we've changed all LED lighting and that type of thing. So I think we could actually maybe ask for some reports back from operations, facilities. What are they already doing? Solar panels at Shallow Lake. There's a lot of things like that would be nice to already have a report on that tells us what's being done, and maybe even ask some of them, what do they see as things that we could be doing or promoting going forward? Because I bet you they've got a lot of ideas out there. So just my comments on that.
Anne. You're on mute there, Anne.
That's a great idea, Sue, because I think there's a lot that could be celebrated, but it could also then lead us on to what next, next steps. I don't want to kind of feel like I'm continuing to go after the same thing, but I want to be really clear about the communication piece, because we have a Georgian Bluffs Climate Action Team committee on Monday night. And I would love to go back and say, hey guys, we've got a really good group of people that are working together. We're trying to have them do a scan of what's already working now so that we can build on that. Is that acceptable? It's not going to the paper, but it is going to our group that meets monthly in Georgian Bluffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Brittany's going to comment, but I'm just going to say first, absolutely, that's okay. That's information sharing. We don't want to stifle the process by being so hung up on these rules that we are stalling the process. We all know that this is an urgent crisis, so we sure don't want communications and rules to hold us back. That wouldn't be forwarding the business. You're simply reporting back as to what's already happened. And I'll let Brittany add her comments.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, I completely agree with everything that Kathy has said. And we also have to bear in mind, these meetings are public, right? So the public can see what we're doing. They are privy to all of these conversations we're having so long as we're in open session. So everybody knows that we have a committee. Everybody knows we're making a work plan. So all of that is not confidential information, right? As far as all of the actions that the township has taken already to improve our climate or our footprint, those are all public as well. You know, we changed the garbage in open session. We approved the LED installation in open session. So all of this is not confidential information. So I do encourage you to spread the word. It's just when we formalize that communication, the township should be involved. So please, yes, tell your committee, spread the word about the committee. We can welcome feedback of the public. But if you're going to write an article or a news release in the newspaper, then the township should play a hand in that. That's all.
For sure. I'm just, as chair, I'm just going to put a gentle reminder out there regarding the time. We'll go to Anne next, and then I think we should just perhaps wrap it up with some kind of summary as to what we hope to appear on our agenda for the next meeting. Anne.
Just really quickly, our Georgian Bluffs Climate Action Committee meetings are also public, and we would really welcome people to join.
Excellent. That can go in the minutes too, I would hope, and that way anyone who's reading them will see that and perhaps have a link as to how to go about doing that, Anne. Thank you. Any other quick comments before we wrap things up? I feel like this has been a good, productive first meeting. It's been 2 hours, but that to me is a really positive sign, because already we're talking about forward action and what we're going to get accomplished, and that's exciting. So next meeting, December 4th at 10. Brittany, can you clarify for us? And we have a bit of an agenda in terms of reports from John and Jen. We want folks to think about other aspects of our work plan going forward. Anything else can be sent to either Brittany or me or both. Is that a good enough summary, Brittany, or did you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's great. Anything you want added to the agenda. Sometimes I find it's best to overwhelm information at first and then pare down what we need. So fire away. If you feel it's worthwhile to have on an agenda, then don't hesitate. We as a committee can go through it and determine what we need to take out of it. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Luke.
Brittany, do you have an example of what a good work plan looks like, so that we don't reinvent the wheel? Is it a template of some kind, or something that would fit kind of the municipal profile?
Sorry, you said what a existing plan looks like?
Yeah, like a work plan. If you talk about a work plan, are we, rather than to overwhelm ourselves with is there some kind of a template that you have found helpful in the past that we can use in order to avoid reinventing the wheel?
That's a really good question, Luke. So this is completely new to the township, being this initiative of climate change. So I would encourage the committee to, or even, we as staff could investigate existing climate change work plans and find ones that we think would tailor best to the township of Georgian Bluffs. So while we don't have anything in-house that I think would necessarily be applicable to this scenario, I think you're correct. We don't need to reinvent the wheel when we're not the first committee to take on this.
Okay. So will you do that, or do you want us to ask other municipalities how they have gone about it?
I would be happy to undertake that. I will look at other work plans that exist.
Okay.
I'll be honest, it'll probably be Grey Highlands or Blue Mountain that I bring forward.
Great. Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
And I mean, I'm sure other folks have seen work plan templates that have been effective. I'm thinking about John's. So if there is one that stands out to folks that you think would be helpful, I would assume it would be okay, Brittany, for them to forward that to you. Okay, thank you. All right. I think we are looking at now a motion. Oh, we won't have any notice of motions, sorry. So we've decided on our next meeting and we need a motion to adjourn. Sue, and a seconder. Luke, all in favor? Thank you very much, folks. It's been a pleasure. Great first meeting. See you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks so much to all of you, especially you, Brittany.
Thank you, everybody.
Very
Thank you,
useful.
Brittany. Take
you.
care. Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Okay.